We are joined now by our friend from the NFL Network, Cynthia Frelund, to talk a little NFL. Cynthia, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
We're good. I always give you a hard time because inevitably quarterbacks always comes up, and I tell myself I'm like DB, just take advantage of her expertise in other areas. She loves analytics, really good with stats, and I just we land on quarterbacks. I think it's lazy,
Mostly my fault. It's
but
mostly my fault.
but
I
but
would like to start with quarterbacks.
me unfortunately me too. I want to go right to Chicago, and
Okay.
it's not just because I love the division. I think it's going to be highly competitive, and the Ben Johnson factor is interesting. But when you start looking at fits and what has to happen with the city to embrace it, and what we hear outwardly about their very candid discussions, right? Ben Johnson's pretty outspoken. Caleb Williams doesn't hold back. How cautious do we have to be about waiting to watch this unfold in its entirety before we stop making these week to week indictments on Caleb Williams and where he belongs in the pecking order and everything else we like to talk about with Caleb Williams?
Well, if you remember, the redo in Detroit took 3 seasons, right? When Dan Campbell got there and they changed things around. And then typically, when someone gets drafted and it doesn't go well in their first season, it takes a hot minute to kind of get those bad habits out. So you have to remember this guy was under significant pressure. His O line did not help him out very much last season. So I think we're not going to, but I think that I think we should. Like, if we were thinking about it, it would be nice to give him a season to just kind of relax and figure it out back there. But ultimately, that's not going to be what happens.
I mean, we're putting a clock on getting the ball out. We're talking about, of the 52 of the 68 sacks for 4 seconds or more. Like the level of scrutiny he gets with just general good quarterback play, right? Delivering the ball on time, which is what you want your quarterbacks to do in general. I don't know, man. It's almost like it's not unfair because he's the top draft pick and it's
Right.
the NFL, but he gets it. To me, it seems like he gets an exceptionally hard time giving the guy through for 3,600, 20-6, 3.5 to 1 TD to interception ratio. Like, there's a lot worse we could be doing as a rookie.
Yeah. Problem is he is that first round. He's 1.01. Like
Mhm.
when you're that guy, there's no. I'd love to give him a break. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think everyone should have like a shield from the media for like at least their first month in the season. In the NFL, and he didn't get that. But that comes with the reality that, I mean, he also gets paid a lot of money and he gets all the glory of being the first round pick. So I mean, it goes both ways, right? So unfortunately, it just kind of is what it is. But I think a lot of coaches believe, and it's hard to know if this is true or not, but a lot of coaches believe that you can train a lot of bad habits out of quarterbacks or out of running backs, but that when you take extended sacks, that's not something that's a really hard, like, that's an exceptionally hard habit to break. So a lot of coaches believe that, for better or for worse. So that's, I think, also where things get a little messed up, because I say it's hard. You'd think I could study it with analytics or something, but the problem is it's not like all O lines are created equal. Like, he didn't have a good opportunity there
Mm.
last season, but so I don't know if it'll get trained out of him or not. We'll have to see. There just isn't a big enough sample size to actually say definitively that you can or can't, in my opinion.
Cynthia, I want to stay in the NFC North because I do find the quarterback situations of every team a little fascinating, right? We already mentioned Caleb Williams and the Bears. I think you have to look at Jared Goff and say, okay, what does this look like in a post Ben Johnson world for Jared Goff? You have JJ McCarthy, and you go, okay, what does that look like taking over as the starter in Minnesota? And then you've got Jordan Love, who a lot of the numbers you looked at kind of regressed. Completion percentage, yards, interception rate went up, through the same amount of interceptions in fewer games from 23 to 24. As you look at this division, who do you feel like you know the most about their quarterback position at this point?
Well, I know the most about Jared Goff because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just has the most data, but also, like, I don't think anyone would sit there and say, hey, he's the most versatile guy in the whole thing. He's going to run. But every once in a while he runs. But he's a pocket passer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know the most about him. J.J. McCarthy, it's really hard to come back from an Achilles no matter how old you are. And especially if you haven't had one snap in the NFL, really. I mean, preseason, whatever. But, that's difficult. And he came from a Michigan system that really didn't ask him to throw without it be like it wasn't the same type of, heavy reliance on the pass that you could potentially have. And then, oh, by the way, you're missing Jordan Addison, you're missing Ronnie Moore, you're missing, there's some, I know Justin Jefferson's still there, but there are some key pieces there that make things a little bit easier that he's now, it's like he has kind of a couple fingers tied behind his back. Not a whole hand yet, not an arm, but, just a little bit.
What's interesting about Goff, and I'm glad you kind of said him first, and the bulk of his intercept, almost half came in one game. He goes 37-12. He throws for 4,700 yards. He's a crazy completion percentage, 73%. And he kind of gets the it's not quite as bad as Jalen Hurts, because I think people are more willing to acknowledge Goff's prowess as a quarterback for whatever the reason than Hurts. But he doesn't get he's surrounded by talent. I do get that he does get what is he going to do this year without Ben Johnson, though. Fair or unfair that we always connect quarterbacks with talent and their play calling, but it doesn't work both ways when we want to give grace either.
I guess it just kind of is, right? Like, it's fair because we do it to everyone. So it's not like he's the first or last quarterback we'll do that to. So it's just part of the gig. But, we'll see, right? Like, I think at some point you become the guy that gets to help craft what the offense looks like. So I don't think he needs Ben Johnson as much now as he did when he first got to the Lions, right? I think it's a completely different, leverage situation, right? Whereas, when you're looking at Johnny, I actually think the biggest problem that the Lions are going to face is Frank Ragnow retiring. I'm not worried about Johnny Morton. I think Frank Ragnow, obviously, they don't go making any interior lineman that way, let alone, he'll be a Hall of Famer. So, this guy that's a big loss. So I think that's more critical than Johnny Morton. Johnny Morton's been there. He also was in Denver last year. He's been some places where they've done things to help, leverage it, take the assets they have and make the best out of them and not ask too much of any one position, right? Bo Nix, they rolled out really, really smartly. They didn't, first he made the easy throws, then he made it a little harder, then now the hard throws towards the end of the season, culminating with that pass against the Bengals. But, it's all, I think they know who they are. I don't think Jared Goff needs Ben Johnson or Johnny Morton to be establishing their identity anymore. I think he can do it for them.
Cynthia, when you're looking at teams that have improved significantly over the offseason, whether it's the, the Patriots trying to bolster up their offensive line, whether is there a specific unit on a team that you think this team got significantly better because of how they changed that unit?
Well, I do think the Patriots overall got a lot better. I think that it's very reasonable to assume that they'll end up second in that division. It's still the Bills' division to lose, but I think the Patriots took a big step forward. I also think, it's so interesting to me. No one says anything. We don't really talk much about Seattle nationally. Seattle kind of gets we don't know. Sam Darnold's there. What's going to happen, right? But their defense is really good. They did something last season where their linebackers went from two guys that were starting in the beginning to those guys weren't even on the team by the end. So, and don't sleep on the NFC West. They get to play the NFC South and the AFC South as their unique opponents. So I just don't think we're talking enough about Seattle. Especially because,
and he's a fantastic coach too, man. That guy can coach.
Yeah, exactly. So if their O-line is even a little good, then they'll be in good shape, to make it to the postseason. Because I think the Niners they're just so banged up. I mean, they have the easiest schedule in the NFL, but they're so banged up that it's hard to imagine them, having sustained success when you're playing. I don't even know who. Maybe 5 rookies on defense starting. Is everyone okay? If they're healthy, then the Niners could make a ton of noise. But I just don't think they are.
Bless your heart for bringing up the Niners. I coached a guy in high school who's Marquise Siegel, who has blown their doors
Okay.
off in the secondary from, just taking advantage of. Listen, your top two guys are down. He's got an opportunity. He's been a great open field tackler his whole life. He left high school running 10,600 meters. Like, he truly is that dude. And when I look at them, though, and it's not just Keese, but for whatever the reason, and I know Salah's back after the purgatory in New York, but for whatever the reason, that franchise gets the benefit of the doubt these last, under Shanahan for sure, in terms of plugging and playing young guys. It doesn't
Yep.
really seem to matter with them when it comes to how long a guy has been in the league or how long he hasn't. Their young guys produce.
Yep. The problem is if they keep having all these guys get hurt, then
Yeah.
it's very hard to produce. It's hard to produce from the bench, right?
Yeah.
They can do a lot with people that maybe weren't household names, absolutely. But I worry because you look at they almost canceled their joint practices past week with the Raiders. I think they had something like 22 guys not participating, which I know that the roster's like 90 right now, but like that's still a lot.
Yeah.
So, like to me, that's the issue. Like, are they going to be able to consistently field a team that's the guys who they want on the field, not just what they have to make do with because of injuries?
Let me get to the great enigma. And I understand I got to get after the passer and turn teams over more on defense and maybe Sweat playing next to Calais Campbell and see what they can get from Darius Robinson. But why can't I figure out what kind of quarterback Kyler Murray is? Like, he always gets the but. Why is he such a hard comp?
Well, I mean, I can't figure out that team in general, right? Outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, who's going to catch the passes reliably?
Do you like Zay Jones or no?
I don't know.
I know, right?
Like, I don't dislike him, but like I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, I watch and I'm like, it's unremarkable. Like, there are so many number 2 wide receivers in the league who could be number 1s elsewhere that are like, I just don't know what I'm looking at. The whole thing is very confusing. Like, I think they're going to do a lot of, heavier sets with, I think they're going to use Trey Benson a lot more. That's the second running back behind James Conner. I don't think it's going to be like they're alternating. I think they're going to do like a lot of things with 2 running backs or maybe even use one as a fullback. Who knows? But like,
I like Benson though.
Oh, I do too. I just don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at top to bottom from that team. I love Will Johnson, the rookie corner out of Michigan that they got like for a steal in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some pieces that I like. I just don't know what I'm looking at otherwise. Last year they surprised everyone, I think, myself included, with winning more games and really being it at the last minute, and then ended up not finishing high in the division. Like, it's a very confusing team. I was even out there at their training camp, and I'm going to be honest with you, don't know what I was looking at. Like, it was hard because I watched, and we were watching them practice against themselves. It's not like, I don't know, but like I'm like, all right, are they good or not? I watched them this past weekend against the Broncos. It's a preseason game. There's non-start. Don't know. They're small compared to the Broncos. The Broncos are really, really big. That's a huge team. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at.
So speaking of which, I used to love it. I don't get to do it near as much. I like poker, right? And I go to the NFC South and I look at the Falcons, and the Falcons to me are like being dealt like suited Jack 10 or pocket 10s, right? It looks really good in your hand, and then all of a sudden the board flops, and it's like, That's kind of how I feel about the Falcons. I like a lot of the individual pieces. Again, I loved Penix, so I want to be right about him. Easton Stick's an Omaha guy. He dealt me fits. I love that they're trying to get aggressive on defense, right? Xavier Watts, another Omaha guy. I love the fact that he gets to learn from Jesse Bates and those guys. But they still, when you look at the Falcons, is it relative to the division, or are they ready to be their own entity?
That's a great question too. I think they are ready. I think they made some moves this year that would suggest that they're ready. They when you're really focused on the trenches and you have a coach like Raheem Morris, it sounds like that's like how those types of that's how they believe to build, right, from the inside out. So I think that focus is huge. Obviously, they spent money to sign their O-lineman, and then on defensive line, they didn't just draft one; they drafted two to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
They need to get the pass rush down. So I think they're ready to take the step forward. The problem is will the incremental step forward that they need to take to actually win the division this time be better than what the Bucs can put on the field? And that's the question, right? Because right now it's the Bucs. We don't talk about the Bucs enough. I mean, they have just keep winning the division even without Tom Brady. So it's one of those things where it feels like the Falcons, like this time last year, same thing. Everyone's like, Falcons win the division. It's theirs to lose, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Bucs are like, I'm sorry, we're still here. Can I help you? Mike Evans, still here.
I actually think Tampa's a dark horse for the Super Bowl. Like that, them being in the Super Bowl would not surprise me at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think the NFC is a lot more wide open than to me, the AFC is there's probably 4 or 5 teams that I could really see being there. And the NFC, to me, it's a little bit more, if you make the playoffs, you have a real chance. Because in a 1-game sample size in the playoffs, any of these teams could knock each other off.
Interesting.
So, Cynthia, I want to talk about teams regressing to the mean or progressing to the mean, right? Because I think a lot of teams, or a lot of people have the 49ers, like you mentioned earlier, if they can stay healthy, progressing back to the mean after their sort of year from hell last year. And then obviously you've got teams that are like, they kind of overachieved. I think they're going to fall back to the pack a little bit. Who do you find the most interesting in each of those categories? Maybe a team from last year that you think is going to outperform what we thought of them, and then one that you're like, hey, I don't really buy that. I think that was fool's gold.
Well, we already talked about the Niners, and we already talked about the Pats. Those are probably two of my, progress, like go back to where they, I like weird injury year. I mean, to have Christian McCaffrey and all that stuff out at the same time is nuts. Ricky Pearsall looks great for fantasy football players. So just so I'm not worried. Like, I don't lose sleep about will the Niners make the playoffs. Like, I think they're in good shape if they have the right people, if they can stay healthy. That's the question, right? See, but I think the Pats will be a little bit of a surprise from the standpoint of, I think everyone's like, well, the Jets have taken this huge step forward, and the Dolphins, I'm like, I think the Dolphins have taken a huge step back. That's the one. And when you have a team in your division that takes a big step back like that, then, the other guys get a chance, because that's 2 games that can really help, think about the difference between 1-2 games make at the end of the season.
Okay, so you brought up the Jets. I got to ask about them. I'm fascinated. I was a Justin Fields fan coming out. I feel like he never has really gotten a good opportunity.
Yeah.
But at some point, you kind of be like, okay, as a guy, just what he is at this point, are you buying the opportunity Justin Fields and the Jets have here, especially if, like, Miami does take a step back? Like, those wins are going to go basically to either New England or New York, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because Buffalo, they already had it.
They've got their 14 or 13 or whatever that number's going to be.
Yeah. To me, let's just put Buffalo. It's almost boring, like in a good way, right? If you're a Buffalo fan, right? Like, but the Jets could. I don't know if it's even a surprise, because I love AG. He's such a good coach. He's a good teacher. He can tell people what they need to learn. So I think that's like huge for the defense. My question on offense always for both New York teams remains: what does your O-line look like? Can you help your quarterback out? Because Justin Fields has never had he has time in the pocket because he scrambles, not because he actually has time in the pocket, right? It's not really in the pocket. He just has time before he throws. So I want to give him a chance to set his feet and see if he can connect with Garrett Wilson. I think that they're not getting enough. I don't know. Everyone in New York always gets too much love. So I think it's like love or hate. There's because I think they're going to be somewhere in between. I think they're going to be a much improved team, but I don't think that they're a Super Bowl contender.
Interesting. I want to give you a chance to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because I think they're similar in a couple of ways. Although if you're a Dolphins fan, you may feel like it's kind of on the downturn, but I'm not sure McDaniel thinks that way. And then in New York, it's like, I could see some positivity relative to their division.
You're talking about the Giants.
With the Giants and the Dolphins, relative to the division, whose trajectory would you push your chips towards in 2025-26?
Well, the Giants have the most punishing schedule in the NFL. They have a stretch where there's 2 months where they're home twice, and they play the Eagles and the Niners at home. hello, what are we doing? Like that's crazy. So I don't think that I think the Dolphins will win more games possibly. But
Really?
I think that the Giants like will feel like, I mean, that defense is good. That defensive front is really good. I don't know how we feel about the quarterback room yet.
I love Dart, and
Sure.
I love Dart, but is it one of those deals, Cynthia, where it's like, okay, normal conventional wisdom says go with the young guy, all things being equal, but you don't want to kill his spirits either. That schedule is a monster. Is that the real decision for Dable after he says Russ is the guy?
I mean, maybe, but Russ is out here throwing 70-yard bombs in preseason. I don't know. Like, if you're
Yeah, the Steeler in me hates his guts, to be honest. Okay, I'm
right,
just
but
telling you.
it's hard to deny that he's like trying.
Where
You know what I
was
mean? Like,
that, Russ?
I know, where was that in the last two teams he played for? So, you know, I don't know. Like, that's the thing is like, I I think eventually it becomes him, but I don't think we start there. And I think, I also keep seeing these Andrew Thomas. Is he hurt? Is he not? Like all this, like that's scary too. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, Brian Dable, for better or for worse, with this ride with with the Giants, he did have, like, we have to acknowledge his resume with Josh Allen and knowing how to get the best out of a raw asset. So I'm going to trust whenever he, puts him out there or doesn't or whatever. I feel like he's earned our ability to trust him in that way.
Okay. Speaking about getting the most out of we'll call it a distressed asset in this condition, I get a lot of grief around the office
Oh,
for
Trevor.
my proclamations about how talented Trevor Lawrence is, despite the lack of production. Is Liam
Yeah.
Cohen finally going to be the guy that makes me look
Oh.
smart, or is it like a lost cause? I just have to write it off.
I mean, I think he's got all the talent in the world. He really does. The disconnect is, I don't know. And I mean, I think that there were some play callers last year that, they've gotten out of there now that are maybe an opportunity for him to really take that step forward. I'm not willing to write him off either. I'm not as high on him as you, but I'm not as low on him as maybe your office mates, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think there's some signs that could point to some good things here. The problem that the Jags have is that one player does not fix, like Travis Hunter, despite playing two ways or whatever he's going to do, does not fix the whole problem, right? So we'll I'm not willing to write Trevor off yet, but I don't think he's like, he was probably an overdraft now that we look back at it.
All right. Last one from me. I guess I got to take advantage of your expertise. So
Of
a lot
course.
of off the field signings. Some fly under the radar. Some are a little bit more obvious. I'm trying to make the case so this is totally leading. Do with it what you will. That the Colts have enough around them where I'm thinking I really loved the acquisition of Daniel Jones, especially with how he could be used with Steichen as having some veteran poise to him. If he's not it, which you may not agree with, is there another signing that we should kind of be paying attention to? It'd be great if you said like Jalen Ramsey, but I think that's still too sexy of an offseason move. Is there a less sexy offseason move that you think could pay big dividends for a team?
Well, first off, I do like the Daniel Jones
Let's go.
aspect because if they don't like, like they play completely different style of ball, right? Like it's not. Sometimes the philosophy is to get a guy that's similar to the one that you have, so that if you have to use him, you don't have to change much of the playbook. That can't be the case because despite Daniel Jones being more athletic than we maybe give him credit for, he's still not going to run the same way Anthony Richardson. He just isn't. So that's the first thing. I think that's a good one, especially if they're not extremely thrilled about it. But I think we should bring it all back full circle, and I can say that I think the most unsexy off-season signings, and I'm going to give them the entire interior O-line for the Bears. If you're really setting someone up for success, that's an area that's extremely different. Or you know what? If you want to go one that's under the radar, maybe we talk about, is Laramie Tunsil going to be healthy and out there?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one if you keep him upright. Yeah.
That's right, because they were pretty close to going to the NFC Championship game. So, yeah.
That's okay. I'll take Tunsil, Jones. You're right. Thuney, like those guys in the interior in Chicago, that's a little too attention giddy. But I do like the Tunsil one. That flew under the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, people haven't really talked about that. And like, if you talk about, first of all, I think it did a lot of damage for Houston. I don't know why they made that move. Maybe they must know something I don't know, but it seems like a strange move to make, given that your CJ Stroud got sacked or whatever. It didn't seem to help him very much. So I'm not sure, but I don't know the strategy. But I do know that it feels like people aren't making a big enough deal about that.
All right, I fibbed. I know we kept you for the quickest 28 minutes in all of podcasting.
You are great. It's great.
All right. Okay. So again, it's in your wheelhouse. Fantasy, all these wide receivers. Yep. Is there one or two that you kind of like more than the other, given either their utilization, the quarterback they play with? Looking for a couple of good young rookie wide receivers.
So everyone knows the number one. So I'm not going to waste anyone's time with that. Mm-hmm. So of the number twos, let's look at guys like the Ricky Pearsalls. I think Jawan Jennings is flying under the radar. Ricky Pearsall. I don't think people are really thinking about the Niners like that. They're like, it's Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, and that's it. So I think that's another one. I also think Christian Kirk is flying a little bit under the radar because everyone's like Nico Collins, blah blah. But that was a he's proven he can play in several different types of systems and with several different types of quarterbacks. So he seems a little bit. And then if you want even deeper, I think if you want a guy, especially for daily fantasy, that is going to give you that upside of the really inexpensive guy, Trey Tucker from the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to have their defense is not their strength, so they're going to have to throw the crap out of the ball. So I think Trey Tucker is in a good position to really capitalize off of that.
Is there a rookie you like?
Ooh, the funny part is that, I love a lot of these running back rookies. The wide receiver rookies, I think, I've Matthew Golden, blah, blah. Okay, I get it. But the ones that I think are interesting are the guys who are like the Isaac Teslas, who, like I said, for daily fantasy will be more impactful, because the rookies that are the high end guys, I think they're just getting overdrafted. I feel like I look at people's ADPs in fantasy and I'm like, wow, that's really rich for someone who's never played an actual. I do like Emeka Egbuka. Maybe he's the one down in Tampa who's not getting enough love, but
they got a sneaky good wide receiving core in Tampa.
They do. But Ket McMillan from the Panthers, everyone very high on him. I gotta pause on that one. Just pause, because I just don't know necessarily how they're gonna look yet. I just feel like he's getting overdrafted. I think I'm seeing him in the third round. I'm like, that feels very high. Very high. So I don't know. That's where I'd rather go for the sneaky underrated guys and be happy later than overdraft someone and be like, darn it.
You brought up average ADP, so I have to ask you this because I saw this and I thought I was out of my mind. I'm seeing there's some places where Ashton Genty is getting drafted higher than Derrick Henry. I'm like, listen, I get we like Ashton Genty. I get Derrick Henry's kind of getting on the wrong side.
Plus preseason, you get the Homer networks too doing the game, so it's like.
But I'm like, we know Derrick Henry almost went for 2K last year, right?
Right.
Their roster is sensational.
And we know that Baltimore is going to run the ball, and even a drop off still gets you to 1,300 yards. What are we talking about here?
Maybe it's some weird setting they have where you get 2 points for PPR, because I don't know, because Derrick Henry doesn't really catch many. I'm trying to find a reason for it, but because I do think Genty will have a special season, but I think that I think he's definitely worth a high pick, but not more than Derrick Henry.
All in or all out on the Chargers?
I'm out on the Chargers.
You stinker! Are you serious?
This is official Chargers type season. What does everyone say? It's exactly this time every year.
Okay.
This is the year. This is the year.
At least you tried to whisper it.
Dude, I feel bad. I don't want to be. I like them, but I'm not all out. But that's the division's harder. The Broncos are honestly the Broncos.
That defense could be elite.
their defense is insane, and they could easily find themselves like. But I just think the Chargers, other than Lad McConkey, like now you're asking Omari and Hampton to take the lead. Like, I'm very, very concerned without Rashawn Slater. Like, last year, they really, a lot of the reason that they went so far is because, Justin Herbert didn't throw any picks. It's really hard to throw 3 picks in a year only. Yeah. It's really, really hard. So so it's not like I hate them. I just, like, if they were in a different division, I would feel completely differently about them.
That's Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network.
So good. I appreciate
the best
it.
there is. Thanks for letting us keep you a little extra time here. We appreciate it as always, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Got it.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Yeah. Happy preseason.
I'm so bummed.